Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is part 3 video on ReactJS JWT authentication using HTTP only cookie. Now our main goal is to implement or to invoke the refresh token endpoint whenever our JWT token inside of the cookie expires. Why? Because our JWT token is a short-lived, right? It will expire. When it will expire, we can renew it, okay, by invoking the JWT access token. So for that, here you have our refresh token endpoint. So to show invocation of refresh token, first let's create one more component, okay, like movie component. So in that component, I am going to consume this secured endpoint. This is simple endpoint, nothing it will return. It will return some collection of movie names. Okay. So first let's go to our React application. Let's create one more page level component. Okay. Like movies component. Now let's add route for this movie component in our app component. So add one more route element and path. I'll specify like movies and element. Okay, movies, and I want to display this movie only for authenticated users. So for that purpose, let's add menu movies menu item in our layout component. So go to layout component. So I want this menu item to come next to the navbar brand. Okay, let's add a new nav element. Okay, here I can add my nav link. So here we have to check for user authentication, right? Check for if user exists or not. If exist, nav dot link. Okay. So as link and to movies. Okay. And this menu item will be our movies. Okay. Now in our movies component, we have to invoke our API call and bind the data to the UI. So first let's create a variable to hold the API response. So I will use state variable. So movies, set movies. Okay. Use state variable. I will call my API call inside of the use effect. Okay. So add arrow function. Array. Okay. Here I can call my API call. So Axios dot get. Okay. Copy our movies URL and along with this URL to pass our cookie, we have to specify with credentials. Okay. True. Once we got the response, let assign the response to our movies variable. Okay. So set movies and response dot data. Okay. So I want to render it here. Okay, what I will do, I will add a div. To this div, I want to center it. For that, let's go to our welcome home component. Here I have some stylings, right, to represent in the center. So copy them, add them to this div as well. Okay. Now let's go to React Bootstrap. So in the components, go to cards. So here I want to use a cards with the list item. Okay, I want to use this card. Okay, add it inside of this div, remove this styling, and we have to import the card and list group. So import those namespaces. Okay, and I just want to loop the one of the list card group item. So for that we can use expression. So our variable is movies variable and map, it will loop, right? So I am going to get the item comma index here. Inside of it, let's add one list group item. Okay, and remove the static list groups. So here I want to render the movie name. Okay, it is a simple array. You can see the response once I access this page. And here I want to add a key element so that I can pass the index. Okay, now let's check whether we are able to get the movies page or not once we logged in. Okay, now log in our form, and here you can see on successful login movies menu item. If I click on it, nothing is coming. Let's check what happening. So network calls 404 not found. Okay, I have to change the port number. Okay, now if I refresh the page, see here I am seeing some content movie name. If you check my API, liked movie API, simple array. Since it is a secured API, right? How we are getting data from secured API? By passing the cookie in the request. Okay. Now, whenever the cookie in JWT token expires that resides inside of the cookie, then we are going to get the 401. Okay, unauthorized. Okay. So let me show you. So for that, what we will do to show you the unauthorized. Okay. Here go to auth module file. Here you can see expiration. This expiration is nothing but my JWT token expiration. Okay, this is server project. So 600 seconds it is there. So I will change it to some 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, after login 30 seconds, JWT token in the cookie will be expired. Okay, once stop the application, okay, server application, and rerun it again. Okay, my server application is rerunning. Now clear these values and relogin again. Clear it. Okay, and reload and login again. Okay, go to movies and open the network calls. Okay, clear them. After 30 seconds, we can see our endpoints get 401 status. Okay, after 30 seconds, no content is displaying. If I go to network calls, you can see cookie is going, but I am getting 401 unauthorized because JWT token inside of the cookie is expired. So now what I can do, I can invoke the refresh token endpoint. So what will happen means, if I invoke the refresh token endpoint, server will generate a new JWT token and that token updated into the cookie. So that again we can make ourselves authenticated. Okay. So here is the URL for refresh token, right? So to implement or to invoke the refresh token endpoint, we are going to create the Axios Interceptor. Okay. So how to create Axios Interceptor means, let me create a new folder inside of the SRC, something like helpers. Okay. Inside of the helper, let me create JWT Interceptor.js. So here constant JWT Interceptor equal to Axios dot create. So what it will means, it is creating a new instance of Axios and assigning to this variable. That means JWT interceptor also a new Axios. Okay, it will do all the work like get, post, everything just like Axios only. I am creating a one more reference of the Axios and assign it to this variable. Okay, now using this variable. So whenever any API call gets 401 unauthorized, at that time I have to invoke the refresh token endpoint, right? So for that, what I can do, JWT interceptor dot, it provides interceptors. Okay, interceptor means it will intercept the flow, means it will halt flow for some time. There we can implement our custom logic. So here it will provide two kind of interceptor. Request interceptor means this will execute before request. This will execute request before going to the server. We can write logic inside of the request interceptor. There is one more interceptor, that is response interceptor. So it will execute once the API returns the response. That may be success response or failure response. At that time, this interceptor will be works. In our case, we want a response only, right? Whenever server returns 401, okay, failure response, at that time we have to execute our custom logic to invoke the API call. So I will use this interceptor dot use. Okay, here first method. Okay, return response. That means first method represents success method. Means if the API call is success, this method gets executed. If you see in this method, we are simply returning response. Means we are not at all implementing any our custom logic. That means we are not interrupting the flow. And second method will be, okay, I will use like async error method. Okay, so this is the method I am going to interrupt. So I am going to implement my own custom logic here. Okay, so here what I will do, if error dot response dot status equal to 401, because any kind of exception server can throw, but I want to implement my custom logic only when the error is unauthorized. Okay, so I am checking the status. If it is 401 unauthorized, then I will use Axios. Okay, and I am going to use get call. So here I can pass my refresh token URL. Okay, with credentials, and I want to await it. Okay, once that is successful, if not, I can catch it the error. Okay, in this catch, what I can do, that means along with the JWT access token, cookie also contains refresh token. If the refresh token also invalid, then invoking the refresh token endpoint is useless. Means someone is trying to access the refresh token endpoint with the invalid refresh token. At that time, what I can do, I simply clear my user information, and here you can clear the local storage for our user information. Okay, the auth context we are storing, right? So this is user profile. I am removing from the local browser storage. Okay, and I can simply return the error message so that you can handle it in your component to reload the page. Okay, so here I will pass like promise dot reject. Okay, already I using error variable, right? This should be another variable like refresh token API error. Okay, this is only happens when the user trying to invoke with the invalid refresh token. Okay, and next, if the API is successful, at that time I want to re-invoke the failed API call, right? Actually, this method is executing whenever the normal API fails due to the expiration of JWT token. So here, once we refresh the token with our cookie, we have to again re-invoke that API call, right? For that, what I can do, Axios and error dot config. Okay, like this, if you pass, it will re-invoke the initially failed API call. Okay. Finally, if not a normal 401 unauthorized error, any other error occurs, I simply return that error. Okay. Here I can write return. So this is my Axios. So now I have to use this JWT interceptor for every secured endpoint. Okay. So for that I can go to my JWT. So here we have to export it. So export default JWT Interceptor. Okay. So now instead of using the Axios, I can use JWT Interceptor in my movie component. Okay. Now this request get intercepted by this interceptor if our authentication is failed. Okay. Now let's test it. So let me first clear the local browser storage. If you want to clear cookie login cookie also, you can clear here. Okay. Now if I go to my page, if I reload, I've got login and click on login form and enter. Okay. Try to login. Okay. Go to network and now switch between our movies and home page. Okay. After 30 seconds, we should get 401 and we should see our refresh token endpoint automatically get triggered and again our API should be re-invoked. Here content is not displaying. If I go to network calls, refresh token 401. Okay, sorry. So again clear these all things. Also this one cookie. So I made a mistake here. I haven't changed the port number 4000. Okay. Okay, now click on login form. Enter our credentials. Okay, authentication is successful. Let me clear the network call. And we are getting movies API call also. And let's wait for 30 seconds to expire our movies API call. Okay, if I go to movies API, here I can see I expected to see my output, but let's check the network calls. See, 401 unauthorized. That means JW token is expired inside of the cookie. But immediately refresh token is invoked. And you can see in the response header a new cookie is set. But immediately I expected to invoke this API call. Like movies original failed API, right? That should be invoked after the refresh token again. But it is not invoked. It is a known issue to me. How I figured out means it is the Axios issue. Okay. If I check the current version of the Axios, it is 1.1.3. Okay, 2 days back released. If I check the versions of all my Axios for 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, all the one series, it is not working. I'm thinking it is a bug from the Axios library. If I fall back to 6 months old library, okay, that is 0.27.2, it is working. Okay, I have already raised this issue for in the Axios repository. Okay, if I got any update from them, I am going to add a comment under this video. Okay, so I have already raised a issue for it. Okay, so I haven't shown you the issue, right? The issue here is you can see in the console something like invalid header. Okay, so this is for latest 1 series version of the Axios. If you fall back to okay, 0.2.7, then this issue won't be occur. So what I will do, I will change the version number to this one. Now let's remove all the node modules inside of this folder. Okay. Okay. Here delete the node modules and reinstall again. We changed the version, right? Okay. After deleting the node modules inside of our React application, open terminal. Again install by running npm install. Package installed successfully. Now if I run our React application and I go to my website, then we can see our API is working. Okay, that is the expected output. So our application is running. So click on inspect elements and network call. And if I click on movies, now I am getting the output. If I check network calls, see here you are observing 3 calls. One is unauthorized, that is due to our JWT token expired in the cookie. Next, immediately invoke refresh token. Right, refresh token. That will regenerate a new JWT token and updates into the cookie. And next, immediately our failed API call, which is like the movies here, it is failed, right? It is automatically re-invoked. And here we are getting the data. So this is the flow when the refresh token is invoked successfully. So here, if I go to my JWT Interceptor, let me show. So whenever my movie component, so movie component invokes get call, right? So here in the interceptor response, waiting for any errors happening or not. If errors happening, we are checking whether that error is 401. If that is a 401, that is unauthorized error, then we are invoking our refresh token endpoint. If the refresh token endpoint is successful, then we are again re-invoking originally failed API call. Okay, that is the flow. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, to support me, please like the video and also please do subscribe the channel. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.